My name is Lauren Miller. I'm 35 years old, a senior accounts manager at a construction firm in Phoenix, Arizona, and a single mom to my 8-year-old daughter, Chloe. I've learned how to balance spreadsheets, deadlines, and bedtime stories without dropping any of them, most days at least. The night my family officially stopped talking to me, I was sitting at my kitchen counter, surrounded by half-packed lunchboxes and unopened mail. Chloe was on the living room floor, coloring quietly, humming to herself in that way kids do when they feel safe enough not to fill the silence with questions. It was 9:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, late enough that nothing good ever came from a ringing phone. When my screen lit up with my brother's name, Ethan, my stomach tightened before I even touched it. I already knew what the call was about. I just didn't know yet how much it was going to cost me. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," I said. "Finally," Ethan replied, his voice loud, energized, like he'd been working himself up for this. "You got a minute?" I glanced at Chloe, who had looked up the second she heard my voice change. "I've got a few," I said carefully. "What's going on?" "Well," he said, dragging the word out, "I'm pulling the trigger on the truck." There it was. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the counter. "Ethan, it's a good deal," he cut in quickly. "Barely used. Lifted. Perfect for work. The dealership says it won't last another day." "What dealership?" I asked. "The one off I-10. Look, that's not the point. I just need you to co-sign." My grip tightened around the phone. "How much is it?" A pause. Just long enough to tell me everything. 55, he said. 55,000. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain didn't know what else to do with a number that big coming from someone who'd overdrafted his checking account 3 times last year. "No," I said. "Calm. Clear. Automatic." "What do you mean, no?" he snapped. "I mean no," I repeated. "I'm not co-signing a $55,000 truck loan." "You didn't even ask why," he said, offended. "I don't need to," I replied. "I've been down this road before." "Jesus, Lauren," he scoffed. "You act like I'm asking for your kidney." I didn't answer. Silence has a way of making people uncomfortable when they expect compliance. From the living room, Chloe cleared her throat softly. Not to interrupt, just to remind me she was there. Ethan exhaled sharply. "Mom and Dad already know about this," he said. "They think it makes sense." "Of course they did." "That's great," I said. "They're welcome to co-sign." Another pause. Then quieter, sharper. "They can't." "And neither can I said. "That's not true," he shot back. "You got a good job. You just got that raise. You're always talking about budgeting and planning and being responsible. This is exactly the kind of thing responsible people help with." I felt something cold settle in my chest. I'd heard this argument my entire life, just dressed up in different words. "I have a child," I said. "I have a mortgage. I have one credit profile, Ethan. If something goes wrong—" "Nothing is going to go wrong," he interrupted. "Why do you always assume the worst about me?" "Because history exists," I thought. But I didn't say it out loud. Instead, I said, "I'm not risking my financial stability. Especially not for a truck I don't need and didn't ask for." His tone changed then. Softer. Dangerous. "So you're really doing this," he said. "You're choosing money over family." There it was. The line they always used when they wanted something from me. "I'm choosing security," I replied. "For me and Chloe." He laughed. Short and bitter. "Unbelievable. Dad was right. Ever since your divorce, you've gotten cold." That one landed. I swallowed hard. "You know what?" he continued. "Don't worry about it. I'll tell them you said no. Just don't be surprised when people remember this." "Remember what?" I asked quietly. "That I said no to a loan. That you turned your back on us," he said, and then he hung up. I sat there for a long moment, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the empty buzz of a disconnected call. "Mom?" Chloe asked softly. I turned toward her and forced a smile. "Yeah, baby. Are you mad?" I walked over and knelt beside her, brushing a crayon shaving off her leg. "No," I said. "I'm okay." It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't a lie either. What I didn't know yet was that this single word, no, was about to cost me my entire family. The silence didn't start right away. That's how it always happens. First comes the pause. The space where you think, they're cooling off. This will pass. For 2 days, nothing happened. No texts. No calls. Just quiet. On the 3rd day, my mom posted photos on Facebook. Sunday dinner. Smiling faces. A table I recognized instantly. My parents' dining room. The one Chloe used to sit at with her feet swinging above the floor. Chloe and I weren't in any of the pictures. I stared at my phone longer than I meant to. Not because I wanted to be included, but because the message was so clear it almost felt rehearsed. I didn't say anything. I packed lunches. I logged into work. I helped Chloe practice spelling words before school like nothing had changed. By Friday, my dad called. I answered because, despite everything, I still believed in warnings before storms. "Lauren," he said, no greeting, just my name. "Your brother tells me you embarrassed him." "I didn't embarrass anyone," I said. "I said no. That's not how family works," he replied immediately. "You don't shut doors on people who need you." "He doesn't need a $55,000 truck," I said. "He wants one." Dad sighed like I was the difficult one. "You're always so rigid. You used to be flexible." Flexible. That word again. It had followed me my entire life, dressed up as praise. "I have responsibilities," I said. "A child. Bills." "And so does your brother," Dad snapped. "But apparently his don't matter to you." I closed my eyes. "If you feel that strongly, you can co-sign." "We already told you we can't," he said. "Our credit isn't what it used to be." That landed harder than he meant it to. Our credit isn't what it used to be because of years of choices they never owned. Choices I'd helped clean up more times than I could count. "So you want to use mine," I said. "I want you to help your family," he corrected. "No," I said quietly. "You want me to take the risk, so no one else has to." The line went silent. Then he said, "You've changed." "Yes," I agreed. "I have." He hung up. That weekend, my mom stopped replying to my texts. My sister-in-law followed me on Instagram. The family group chat went dead, except for one message from Ethan. "Guess we know where we stand now." I didn't respond. Instead, I started remembering. I remembered being 12 years old, standing in the grocery store line while my mom whispered numbers under her breath, trying to decide which items could go back. I remembered my dad handing me bills and saying, "You're good at math, figure it out." I remembered being the first one in the family with a savings account. The first one with a credit card that wasn't maxed out. The first one who learned the difference between helping and enabling, even if I didn't know the words for it yet. By the time I was 25, my family had learned something important about me. I was reliable. And reliability, in our family, meant available. The first time I co-signed anything, it was for Ethan, a used sedan he needed for work. I was 27, newly married, still believing marriage meant safety. "It's temporary," my mom had said, "just until he builds some credit." He missed 2 payments in the first year. The bank didn't call him. They called me. I covered it, then covered it again, then refinanced my own debt to keep everything from collapsing. When I confronted him, Ethan shrugged. "I thought you had it handled. My parents told me not to make it a big deal." "Family absorbs hits sometimes," my dad said. The second time wasn't a loan. It was rent. 3 months' worth. Then 6. Then utilities. Always with promises. Always with urgency. "You're good at bouncing back," my mom said. "You always land on your feet." What she meant was, you'll survive this too, so it doesn't matter what it costs you. After my divorce, I stopped offering help. I didn't announce it. I just paused, asked questions, said I needed time to think. They noticed immediately. "You've gotten distant," my mom said once. "Is someone influencing you?" I looked at Chloe playing with blocks on the floor and realized something unsettling. The person influencing me was my child. Chloe didn't know any of this history, but she felt the tension anyway. Kids always do. When the phone rang and I didn't answer, she watched my face. When I sighed after reading a message, she got quieter. One night, while I was tucking her in, she asked, "Why doesn't Uncle Ethan come over anymore?" I hesitated. "People get busy," I said. She nodded, but her brow creased the way it does when she's thinking hard. Did we do something wrong? That question lodged itself in my chest like a stone. "No," I said immediately. "We didn't." But the truth was, my family had already decided otherwise. 2 weeks after the long conversation, my dad's birthday came and went without an invitation. Then Thanksgiving plans circulated, just not to me. I found out through a cousin who texted, awkwardly, didn't know if you were going. I wasn't. When Chloe's school held a family day, she drew a picture afterward. It was me, her and our cat. No grandparents. No uncle. That's my family, she said simply. I smiled and nodded, but inside, something broke and healed at the same time. I realized then that this wasn't about a truck. It was about control. And the moment I stopped being useful, I stopped being included. What I didn't know yet was how far my family was willing to go to punish me for that. The call from the dealership came on a Wednesday morning while I was reviewing invoices at work. I almost ignored it. Unknown number, out-of-state area code, but something in my gut tightened before the second ring finished. "Hello, this is Lauren Miller," I said. "Hi, Ms. Miller," the man replied, polite, professional. "This is Kevin from Desert Ridge Auto Finance. I'm just calling to confirm you're still listed as the co-signer on Ethan Miller's truck loan." The room tilted. "I'm not a co-signer," I said slowly. I refused. There was a pause. Paper shuffling. Keyboard clicks. "According to our system, your signature was finalized on Saturday." My heart started pounding, so hard I could hear it in my ears. "That's not possible," I said. "I didn't sign anything." "Well," he said carefully, "we have a completed contract with your name, your social security number, and a digital signature that matches your profile." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. My coworkers looked over. I waved them off and walked into the stairwell, the concrete steps cold under my palm. "Email me the paperwork," I said. "Of course," he replied. "We just need to clear up a few things." When the email came through, my hands shook so badly I had to sit down on the stairs. The document looked real. Too real. My address. My employer. My income. Numbers only my family knew. And the signature. Close enough to mine that my stomach dropped. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something in me went perfectly still. I called my dad first. He answered on the second ring. "Lauren, did you give Ethan my information?" I asked. A beat. Just one. "Why are you being so dramatic?" he said. "Did you?" I repeated, my voice flat. He exhaled. "We were trying to help him. The dealership needed reassurance. It's not like you'd actually be paying." "You forged my signature," I said. "That's a strong word," he snapped. "You were going to do it anyway. You always do." I laughed once, sharp and hollow. "No, I don't. Not anymore." He lowered his voice, the way he did when he wanted to sound reasonable. "Lauren, don't blow this up. We'll fix it. You don't need to make trouble." Trouble. That's what they called consequences. "I'm reporting this," I said. Silence. "Then, you wouldn't," he said. "Not to your own family." I hung up. My hands were steady when I called the non-emergency police line. Steady when I explained identity fraud. Steady when they told me to come in with documentation. That night, I didn't tell Chloe everything. I just told her we were going to have a quiet evening. We made grilled cheese. We watched a cartoon. I kissed her forehead a little longer than usual when I tucked her in. After she fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and organized every email, every text, every missed call. I printed bank statements, screenshots, the refusal text I'd sent Ethan 2 months earlier. By the time I finished, the folder was thin, but heavy. At the police station the next morning, the officer listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked at the paperwork again and shook his head. "They used your information knowingly," he said. "This is fraud." The word felt surreal, like it belonged to someone else's life. He slid a form toward me. "Sign here. This creates a case number. You'll need it for the bank and the dealership." I signed. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter and heavier all at once. I sent one message to the family group chat. 3 attachments. The loan contract. My text refusing to co-sign. The police case number. Then one sentence. "For legal reasons, all future communication must be in writing. Do not use my personal information again." The replies came fast. Ethan accused me of ruining his life. My mom begged me to think about what I was doing. My dad demanded I drop the report immediately. I didn't respond. That night, someone banged on my apartment door. I didn't open it. I turned on my phone camera instead. "Open up," my dad shouted from the hallway. "You think you're better than us now?" Chloe woke up crying. I wrapped my arm around her and whispered, "You're safe." Eventually, the noise stopped. The next day, I changed the locks, froze my credit, removed my parents from Chloe's school contact list. It felt drastic. It felt necessary. 3 weeks later, the dealership voided the loan. Ethan lost the truck. My family blamed me. But something else happened too. The call stopped. The pressure stopped. The silence returned, but this time, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. Saying no didn't break my family. It just exposed what they expected me to be. After the dealership incident, life didn't magically get easier, but it got quieter, and that quiet was almost like oxygen. Chloe and I fell into a rhythm I hadn't realized we were missing. Breakfasts without arguing over time. Carpooling without tension. Bedtime stories without the lingering shadow of family expectations. I still worked long hours at the office. My title didn't change. My responsibilities didn't change. But now, when I walked out of the building at night, I wasn't carrying invisible debt, guilt, or the anticipation of judgment. I was carrying only Chloe's backpack and my own lunch for the next day. The emails from my family slowed to a trickle. First, there was Ethan, sending messages that alternated between pleading and blaming. "You've always been like this. You're ruining my life." I didn't respond. Then my mother, using softer tones, sent long paragraphs filled with words like misunderstanding and family should forgive. I didn't respond. And then my dad tried one last time, short and sharp. "Drop the case. You're embarrassing us." I wrote back only once. Access to me is not a family right. It's earned. For the first time, I felt a strange weight lift. A weight I hadn't noticed I'd been carrying since I was a teenager, the expectation that my time, my credit, my stability, and my very self were always available to others, no matter the cost. I realized I had spent decades being the reliable one, while everyone else took the risks and walked away unscathed. Chloe noticed the shift too, though she didn't understand the legalities. She just noticed that Mom and Dad weren't showing up for birthdays, for school events, for phone calls that should have come, and that now, her mom was calmer, less tense, more present. One evening, she handed me a drawing, a picture of her, me, and our cat on the sofa. No grandparents, no uncle. Just us. "This is my family," she said, smiling shyly. I hugged her tight, tears threatening to fall, but not fully letting them. It hit me then, what my responsibility really was. It wasn't to maintain appearances. It wasn't to absorb debt or smooth over every crisis caused by other people's poor choices. It was to protect Chloe, to protect our life, and to protect my own future. Anything else was optional. I began documenting everything in case there was another attempt at control. Emails, voicemails, messages. Everything went into a folder I kept locked. The pattern was clear now. Each time I had said yes in the past, I had been punished or manipulated afterward. Each time I said no, I was shunned or threatened. The truck incident confirmed it. The difference now was that saying no longer made me feel guilty. It didn't make me feel like I had failed as a daughter, a sister, or a parent. The biggest change, though, wasn't legal. It was psychological. I stopped bracing for every call, for every sudden visit, for every family emergency disguised as a request. I stopped measuring my worth by their approval. It was terrifying at first, that sense of autonomy, because I had been trained my whole life to see my own independence as rebellion. But slowly I started enjoying it. Mornings with Chloe became a little sweeter. She told me more about her day, asked more questions, laughed louder. And at night, when I tucked her in, I didn't feel the gnawing anxiety that used to follow me into every bedtime routine. Even at work, things improved. I could focus without half my attention being tied up with worry about family drama. I started planning for bigger goals, a vacation for just the two of us, saving for a down payment on a new apartment, maybe even starting that side consulting business I had dreamed about for years but had never had the time or freedom to pursue. It was during one of these evenings, with Chloe asleep and the city lights spilling into my kitchen, that I realized something profound. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you finally start loving yourself and those who truly depend on you. It means you can show up for your child fully without the invisible chains of family expectations dragging you down. And so, we built a smaller world. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy. There were moments of guilt, occasional nightmares, and random pangs of loneliness when a holiday rolled around and the house felt too quiet. But it was ours. Chloe was thriving, and I was no longer living in constant defense mode. I had drawn a line, and for the first time in my life, it was respected. The fallout from the truck incident continued in small, messy ways. Occasionally, I would hear whispers at work from colleagues who knew my family or see subtle digs in emails that weren't meant for me directly. But the police report had given me leverage, and the firm boundary I had drawn with my family made their attempts to intimidate or guilt me irrelevant. Chloe once asked me in the car on the way to school, "Mom, will they ever come back?" I glanced at her, careful with my words. "Maybe," I said. "But if they do, it will be on my terms. We only let people in who respect us and make us feel safe." She nodded, understanding far more than she should for her age. That night, as I folded laundry in the quiet kitchen, I finally allowed myself to admit I was proud of the life we had built. Not the one my family had imagined for me, but the one we had created together. And in that pride, I realized the first real, deep, unshakable peace I had felt in decades. Weeks turned into months. The initial chaos of the truck incident faded, but the echoes of what had happened lingered. Emails still came, but I didn't respond. Voicemails piled up for a while, then stopped. Phone calls went straight to voicemail. They tried letters, but those, too, ended up in my locked folder unread. My family had decided to enforce their version of punishment through silence, and I finally accepted that it was permanent for now. Chloe noticed the difference immediately. Without the constant tension hovering in our home, she laughed more freely, spoke more openly, and slept more soundly. She stopped tucking herself in with the tiny sense of vigilance she had developed, always listening for a raised voice, always bracing herself. She had learned to disappear emotionally when adults argued, and for the first time, I saw her fully present, not shrinking or holding back. One evening, we were sitting on the couch together, flipping through a book about space. Chloe paused and said, "Mom, do you think Grandma and Grandpa are mad at us forever?" Her voice was quiet, tentative. I closed the book and looked at her. Her big brown eyes, always so observant, searched mine. "No, sweetie," I said slowly. "They're upset right now, but that doesn't change our life. It doesn't change us. And it doesn't mean we stop being a family. Our little family here is enough." She smiled, and that small smile felt like a weight lifting off my chest. I realized in that moment that everything I had feared, the isolation, the judgment, the guilt, had been blown up in my mind far more than it existed in reality. My responsibility was never to fix anyone else's life at the cost of mine, and teaching Chloe that lesson was just as important as teaching her how to tie her shoes or spell her name. Around the same time, I started focusing on my own growth. I requested a minor promotion at work, one that would give me a bit more flexibility and recognition, and to my relief, my boss approved it without hesitation. It was a reminder that my world didn't revolve around their approval, that my hard work had value independent of family drama. The legal case continued in the background, mostly procedural. I submitted the paperwork to the bank and the dealership, and the fraud claim was officially recognized. The dealership reversed the transaction. Ethan lost the truck, and while I won't say he was grateful, he did stop calling. My parents' attempts to manipulate me via guilt had no leverage anymore. I had proof, I had boundaries, and I finally had clarity. But there were lingering moments, like when a package arrived addressed to Chloe with her grandparents' names, filled with school supplies they hadn't sent last semester. Or when I caught myself hesitating before deleting an email from my mother, wondering if ignoring it would be cruel. Those moments tested me, but each time I returned to the same thought. Love doesn't require enabling. Protection doesn't require sacrifice beyond reason. One Saturday afternoon, we went to the park. Chloe ran ahead, giggling, chasing after a flock of pigeons. I sat on a bench, watching her, letting the sunlight warm my face. I felt lighter than I had in years. I realized I hadn't felt this sense of peace since before my parents had begun treating my independence as a bargaining chip. And I understood fully for the first time that life didn't have to be a constant negotiation of my worth. I also began writing again. I had kept a journal since Chloe was born, but now the pages were filling with reflections on boundaries, identity, and resilience. I wrote about the lessons I had learned, how to say no without shame, how to protect myself legally and emotionally, and how to ensure Chloe never internalized the toxic lessons I had absorbed for decades. Then one morning, a letter arrived from Ethan. It wasn't long, and it wasn't filled with blame. It said, "I get it. I'm sorry for pushing. I messed up." I didn't reply. Not because I was cruel, but because our relationship wasn't ready for conversation. He needed space, and so did I. And that was okay. Chloe and I talked about it over breakfast. "Do you think Uncle Ethan will ever understand?" she asked, syrup dripping from her fork. "I don't know, honey," I said, smiling gently. "But I do know this. We don't need anyone else to validate our family. We have each other, and that's enough for now." The next weeks felt like a slow healing process. Chloe's teacher commented on how confident she seemed in class. My boss noticed my energy levels were higher, my focus sharper. And I noticed something else, a sense of ownership over my life that I had never felt before. It was mine to live, mine to protect, mine to enjoy without fear of familial retaliation. That's when I finally realized I hadn't just survived the truck incident. I had set the foundation for a future where I and my daughter were safe, financially and emotionally. And that, above all else, felt like victory. The echoes of my family's anger faded into background noise. Their silence no longer intimidated me. I had built walls, legal protections, and clear boundaries. Most importantly, I had built a life where Chloe could grow without fear and I could thrive without guilt. And for the first time in years, the word family felt like it belonged to me. Not borrowed, not conditional, not weighted with obligation. It was ours. Months later, our life had settled into a rhythm I never thought I'd experience. Peaceful, predictable, and fully ours. Chloe thrived at school. She laughed more freely, spoke more openly, and never once asked if she had done something wrong at a grandparent's house. She knew our family wasn't broken, it was just redefined. One Saturday morning, we walked to the neighborhood park hand in hand. Chloe ran ahead to the swings, her laughter echoing, and I paused on the path, taking a deep breath of warm Arizona air. The sun glinted off her hair, and for a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades: unfiltered freedom. The truck incident, the betrayal, the legal battles, they had all been a storm. But storms leave behind clarity. I realized I didn't need my family's approval to live a good life. I didn't need their validation to feel worthy. My responsibility was to Chloe and myself. That's it. That was all that mattered. And slowly, I started living like it. I signed the lease on a bigger apartment with more space for Chloe to play. I reorganized our finances, creating a real emergency fund that no one else could touch. I even allowed myself to save for small luxuries, a new bike for Chloe, a weekend getaway for just the two of us. Every small step felt revolutionary. Every choice made without fear or guilt reinforced a sense of ownership over my life I had never felt before. At work, I thrived. The energy I once spent worrying about family crises went into projects, mentoring colleagues, and planning long-term goals. I could finally focus without distractions. I noticed my confidence had grown, not the kind that comes from proving others wrong, but the quiet, steadfast confidence of knowing your own worth. One evening, Chloe and I were curled up on the couch, reading a book together. She looked up at me, her little hands gripping mine, and said softly, "Mom, I like our family. Us and the cat." I smiled, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Me too, honey. Me too." It hit me then. Our family didn't need everyone else's approval or participation. We were enough. Just the two of us, laughing in our apartment, making traditions that belonged solely to us. Months after the initial incident, I received one final email from my parents. They didn't apologize. They didn't acknowledge the fraud. They simply wrote, "We miss you." I stared at the words for a long moment. Then I deleted the message. Not out of malice, but out of clarity. Their absence no longer hurt because my life had expanded beyond the shadow of their expectations. I had chosen safety and stability over drama and manipulation. I had chosen my child and myself over a cycle that never once served me. Chloe, of course, had questions. "Mom, why didn't you answer?" I knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because some people need time to understand their own mistakes, and it's not my job to fix them anymore," I said. She nodded, accepting it more easily than I thought. "Okay, I get it." And in that moment, I felt something profound. I had finally broken the pattern. The generations of using family loyalty as a bargaining chip, the endless cycle of exploitation disguised as love, it stopped with me. Chloe would grow up knowing that love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself or your future for someone else's comfort. That boundaries are not betrayal, they're protection. That saying no can be an act of courage, not selfishness. In the quiet evenings that followed, I allowed myself to reflect. I thought about the dinners missed, the birthdays ignored, the manipulations endured. And I realized none of it had broken me. It had taught me. It had shown me how to trust my judgment, honor my instincts, and protect my life from being commandeered by others. 3 months after the police case, I walked through the door of our apartment after a long day at work. Chloe ran into my arms, giggling, telling me about a new friend she made. I hugged her tighter than usual, inhaling the scent of shampoo and crayons, and thought, this is what victory feels like. Not revenge, not confrontation, not guilt, peace, stability, freedom. And that's when I understood fully, saying no doesn't make you cold or unloving. Saying no can save your life, your child's life, and your sanity. Saying no can allow you to finally live the life you were meant to live, unchained from the expectations of people who see your love as a resource instead of a gift. Chloe and I made dinner together that night, just us, just the quiet hum of the apartment, and the knowledge that we were safe. The city lights shone through the window. The dishes were ordinary, the laughter genuine, the night hours. And in that small, ordinary moment I knew we had everything we needed. The lesson was clear. Family isn't just the people you're born into. Family is the circle you protect, the people you love without being used, and the boundaries you enforce to preserve that love. I had found mine, Chloe and I, and for the first time I knew, without doubt, that we were enough.